It is my distinct pleasure this morning to introduce our guest minister. Stephen Epperson has been the Parish Minister of the Unitarian Church of Vancouver since 2002. Reverend Epperson was President of the UU Ministers Association of Canada and currently is a Canadian Chapter Liaison of the Ministerial Formation Network of the UU Ministers Association. And he is very happy to be a grandpa.
Thank you for the generous and warm welcome here this morning. Actually, I was really happy to wake up this morning and see the snow. I tend to like it, actually. It's been a long time since I've been here, and so glad to be doing this pulpit exchange with Marcus and Emily, and I hope they will receive the same kind of warm welcome at the Unitarian Church of Vancouver as I've received here this morning. I want to share some words with you as we go into that place of silence and meditation and prayer. Words that were written back in the middle 19th century by one of the great astronomers of the day. Her name was Maria Mitchell, and a Unitarian who became the first professional female astronomer in the world. So here are these words written by Maria Mitchell. Small as is our whole system compared with the infinitude of creation, brief as is our life compared with the cycles of time, we are so tethered to all by the beautiful interdependencies of law that not only the sparrow's fall is felt to the uttermost bound, but the vibrations set in motion by the words we utter reach through all space, and the tremor is felt through all time. Please join with me in a few moments of silent meditation, thought, and prayer. Small as is our whole system compared with the infinitude of creation, brief as is our life compared with the cycles of time, we are tethered to all by the beautiful interdependencies of law. I'm used to having this huge pulpit to hide behind. I feel exposed. 30-plus years ago, Unitarian Universalists in North America went through a process of exploring and agreeing to a set of principles which would best express what we value and believe together as a religious community. It took several years, lots of discussion and negotiation. We are Unitarians after all. Then in 1985, it seemed all was set. 6 principles, beginning with an affirmation of the dignity and worth of persons, and from there a consensus on a set of qualities of character and ways of being in relation in community and beyond that were most descriptive of us as we were, are, and aspired to be. 6 principles. And then from the floor of the General Assembly, an additional principle was proposed, and in that very moment it was agreed. A 7th principle should join the other 6. It was like, how could we have forgotten this? And so we read, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. The affirmation of the interdependence of all existence arises from fundamental theological and scientific insights. From the ecological sciences, which I think inspired the seventh principle 30 years ago, there is an agreed understanding that every form of life depends on other living things and on the non-living physical environment as well, from the subatomic realm to the utmost bounds of the cosmos. Charles Darwin noted this when, over 150 years ago, he wrote, quote, "It is interesting to reflect that these elaborately constructed forms of life, so different from each other and so dependent upon each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us." Our seventh principle is also a theological statement. It expresses that this is how we believe and feel the world just is in its deepest, truest sense. Stating that we all participate in an interdependent web of all existence is a worldview which sees a oneness in things. It's the felt idea. It's something we feel utterly to be true. It's the deep-seated belief that everything is part of an single underlying substance and reality. Essentially, this means that in spite of appearances, there is no true separation between things and people and planets, that at the very heart of the matter there is a universal oneness. No wonder the seventh principle was so readily adopted 30 years ago. It anchors our seven principles and now resides at the very heart of the vision statement of the Canadian Unitarian Council, that interdependence, felt and in fact, is most true and truly desired by us, and that it gives rise to our acting toward each other and this one and precious world of ours in love and justice. It affirms what we know of the world from ecological and social sciences. The seventh principle also accords with a conviction of our Unitarian tradition going back, in fact, half a millennium. The Unitarian assertion of the unity and interrelationship of all things in the heavens and the earth. That insight carries with it the consequence of an ethic of respect and responsibility to justice and the well-being of all things. I can't stress that fact about us strongly enough. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to give this sermon today. It is, I believe, our most precious heritage. In rare, priceless moments, we see and we feel it. We point to it with awe and reverence as best we can, in spite of all our limitations to comprehend it. We gesture to and affirm that cosmic, earthly, and affective unity, that astonishing interconnection. We approach this insight, we try to express it when we talk about our personal experience of transcending mystery and wonder, of when we perceive forces which create and uphold life, and when we learn and speak of the interdependent web of all existence. Now, I don't know about you. Otherwise I had a good public education, but I was poorly educated in the sciences. I had a good humanities education and social sciences, but not, the hard sciences. And maybe because of that, it has been a source of deep delight in my autumnal years to learn more about the splendors of the world around, within, and beyond us. And so on this lunar New Year weekend, I want to invite you to join me in a journey into realms of wonder disclosed by the sciences. And in the time remaining, I want to talk about recent discoveries which testify to interdependence and connecting webs, to heretofore hidden realities beneath our feet and stretching to the utmost bounds of the universe. So to begin, it's hard to appreciate the fact that before the 1930s, the universe as pictured by astronomers consisted of our Milky Way galaxy, surrounded by a static void of space of undetermined size and age. That's it. One galaxy and emptiness beyond. Now I'm going to ask you to do something. I want you to stretch out your arm, make a dime-sized space between your thumb and your forefinger, extend them above your head, and imagine you're looking into the night sky. Okay? Now, hold up there. In that one small aperture, the largest telescopes in the world peer out and focus into deep space, and what they can see now is literally hundreds of thousands of galaxies like our own in just that small slice. Okay, you can put your arms down if you want. But now, imagine sweeping the entire sky like that over the whole of the entire Earth. Okay? Not just here, but everywhere around the world. Do you feel it? I do. Vertigo? For me, it's sheer awe. We're looking up at 2 trillion galaxies, each a system of millions and billions of stars in an expanding universe about 14 billion years old. And now hold on to your hats, because only 5% of the ordinary matter plus energy content of the universe is actually known and seen by us. The remaining 95% of the universe, roughly 1/3 of it is made of what they're calling dark matter, and the other 2/3 is comprised of something even more mysterious, dark energy. Each is still largely mysterious and essentially invisible to us, and yet without either of them, our universe and us could not exist and would not exist. Dark energy, dark matter, discovered only in the past 20 years or so, ultimately determined the dynamics of the formation of the structures of our universe. And what's that something we've learned about that structure? Here it gets even more interesting. We've probably all seen a topographical map, yes? It's a 2-dimensional rendition of the 3-dimensional contours of the Earth's surface. Serious hikers and mountaineers depend upon these kinds of maps to anticipate the degree of difficulty or ease of the rise and fall of the landscape across which they're traveling, and so they prepare themselves accordingly. Try to imagine a 3-dimensional map of the universe. Using astronomical observations obtained from our most advanced telescopes, cosmologists have been running computer simulations of the evolution and overall mass and structure of the universe on the largest possible scales. The results that have been coming in only in the past few years have been the creation of stunning 3-dimensional maps of the universe as it evolved from initial conditions after the Big Bang right down to the present, and they even conjecture how it will continue to evolve beyond that. And what have they seen? What do they tell us? that the distribution of those 2 trillion galaxies isn't random. They're not just thrown out there, nor have they evolved willy-nilly through space and time. Rather, galaxies are organized even today in a manner resembling an enormous network, a cosmic web. That's what cosmologists and astrophysicists are calling it, not me. The cosmic web. Under the relentless push and pull of gravity, ordinary matter enveloped by dark matter has clustered into vast nodes of stars and galaxy groups. In turn, they're connected to each other over vast distances, hundreds of light years, by galactic filaments consisting of star groups and superheated clouds of matter-rich gases. This term, cosmic web, writes astrophysicist Richard Gott, captures, I quote from him, captures both the topology of the large-scale structure and the thinness of filaments reminiscent of a spider's web. I know it's not very well rendered. You'd have to really take a close look at it, but there's an illustration of that cosmic web on the cover of today's order of service. Okay? And I encourage you to just go on your computer, Google cosmic web, look for images, and marvel at what you see. Scientists are saying that these filaments, you can sort of see these filaments connecting larger, lighter nodes, that these filaments not only form a network of bridges between galaxies, they're now thinking that these filaments actually accelerate the formation of new galaxies and then funnel them toward larger galaxy clusters. And finally, the voids of space between filaments and star groups, those are the home to that invisible dark energy, which in opposition to gravity is causing the expansion of our universe to accelerate, something that's happening throughout the cosmos. I mean, it's this dynamic system. The cosmic web is expected to play an important part in understanding the mystery of dark energy, which astronomers now believe comprise 70% of the stuff of the universe today. And it's the action of dark matter acting on galactic scales that's keeping the universe from literally flying apart. So in sum, the largest structures in the universe are giant filaments of galaxies stretching between great clusters. They're greatly expanded fossil remnants of initial random quantum fluctuations after the Big Bang. They're grown by gravity with the help of mysterious cold dark matter. They're stretched out by dark energy. They form a magnificent sponge-like cosmic web. It's an amazing picture of a universe interdependent and dynamically related and alive. Now these words, magnificent sponge-like cosmic web, were written by an astrophysicist in a book published less than 2 years ago. We didn't know about that. We couldn't prove that there was something called the cosmic web back in 1985 when our seventh principle was adopted by Unitarian Universalists at a General Assembly. But think about it, there's something kind of thrilling about the coming together of an inspired religious insight about the fundamental nature of all existence on the one hand, and the rise of the term cosmic web into the vocabulary of contemporary astrophysics, which recognizes the interdependent action of energy and matter heretofore hidden from view on cosmic scales of time and space. Let's just savor and wonder at that for a moment. Because now we're going to plunge into another important hidden reality, which for the most part has long been invisible to us, and yet is essential to life on this planet. In his recent book, The Hidden Life of Trees, the forester and botanist Peter Wohlleben writes this, quote, "We know less about the ocean floor than we know about the surface of the moon. We know even less about the complex life in the soil that busies itself under our feet. There are more life forms in a handful of forest soil than there are people on the planet. A mere teaspoon contains many miles of fungal filaments. And all these work the soil, transform it, and make it so valuable for the living well-being of trees and plants." End quote. Now, botanists have known that there was something mutually beneficial about the relationship between plants, trees, and fungi since the late 19th century. But until only the last 2 decades, most of what they knew was just mere guesswork. And little did they know how fantastically mutual that relationship was in fact. Then in 1997, Dr. Suzanne Simard of UBC discovered that Douglas fir and paper birch trees transferred life-enhancing carbon between them via a vast network of below-ground fungus. And since then, scientists in Europe, China, and North America have shown that plants and trees, even of different species and widely separated from each other, exchange carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus as well, using the same root. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Take a look again at the picture on today's order of service, and you're going to need your magnifying glass. Above, on the left-hand side, you see a seedling, and then below ground, its relatively thick roots that stretch and branch out into the soil. Look closer again, and we see extending from these roots a web of filaments attached to the seedling roots by small round nodes and extending out and beyond into the soil. And if your eyesight is really good, we see even more minute filamentary threads branching out through the dirt. It's all a symbiotically connected network of roots and fungus, a network absolutely essential to the health of both forms of life, tree seedlings and fungus. I have 3 wonderful words for us to walk away with today, okay? And now I have to bring out my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, 3 cocktail party words will really influence your friends, okay? Impress them. For those of you who can't see them on the side. Mycorrhizal, mycelium, and hyphae. Okay? Who says you can't win friends and influence people? Okay. Mycorrhizal network, mycelium, and hyphae. Mycorrhizal is a mashup of the Greek word mykos, meaning fungus, and rhiza, meaning root. Mycelium is the fungal web attached to plant and tree roots extending out through the soil. And hyphae are the tiny filamentary tendrils of the mycelium. Being so small, hyphae can voyage where no plant root can go. Hyphae conduct moisture and nutrients from the soil directly through the mycelia to plant roots, to the root cells of plants and trees. In exchange for water and nutrients, the fungal network receives food from plants in the form of carbon-based sugars. These sugars are manufactured above ground by plants through the process of photosynthesis. And the carbohydrates are thus conveyed down through leaf, branch, stem, and root from the world above of blooming sun and fragrant air down in the teeming life of roots and mycelia below. The mycelia, symbiotically connected directly to the roots of their host tree and plant, also hook up with other mycelia below the forest floors, meadows, and gardens via their filamentary webs. And I'm talking about extensive hooking up. It's been discovered that over centuries, a single fungus can cover many square miles and network an entire forest of trees of various species together, as well as other plants beneath the forest canopy. This interdependent web of plants and fungi gets even more beautiful and pleasing to contemplate. For in addition to the direct nutritive exchange I've described above, other kinds of exchanges are going on. Fungal connections enable the transmission of chemical and electrical signals from one tree and plant to the next, helping them to exchange news about insects, drought, and other dangers, and to take defensive action. For example, it's been shown that mycorrhizal networks transmit messages about insect infestations on certain oak trees, which led neighboring oaks to increase the flow of insect-resistant tannins in their veins. Exactly. That's what I say. A series of studies begun by UBC's Suzanne Simard and then carried out by other scientists around the world is showing that large trees help out small, younger ones using the fungal internet. Botanists and science journals are now calling below-ground mycorrhizal networks of fungus and roots the Wood Wide Web. In these studies, seedlings and small trees languishing in the shade and starved for food actually receive carbon and other nutrients from larger photosynthesizing trees via transmission through the extensive mycelia network below ground. Says Dr. Simard, plants are not really individuals in the sense of competing for individual survival of the fittest. In fact, they are interacting with each other, trying to help each other to survive. Catherine Morris of Xavier University writes, these fungal networks make communication between plants, including those of different species, faster and more effective. We don't think about it because we can usually only see what's above ground, but most plants, up to 90% of them, are connected down below, not through their roots, but via mycelia connections. These connections of the mycelia and the mycorrhizal fungi networks down below. And Christina Kaiser of the University of Vienna cautions, We don't think there is an intention of a tree to help its neighbor, but it's clear that even a very mixed forest is much more connected than we ever thought. The fungal filamentary web exemplifies one of the great lessons of ecology. Seemingly separate organisms are connected and mutually depend on each other. Similarly, contemporary cosmology is now speaking of the large-scale structure of the universe as a cosmic web, with galaxies interconnected and their evolution accelerated via galaxy-to-galaxy filamentary bridges. I don't know about you, but I just find all of this absolutely extraordinary. Just extraordinary. And we didn't know about this just a few years ago. It's an amazing time to be alive. Cosmic web, wood wide web, world wide web. Funny how the latter term was created by the British Unitarian Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was one of the principal inventors of the Internet's World Wide Web. None of these terms were known or in use when, back in 1985, Unitarian Universalists adopted the seventh principle as expressing something essential about us. Call it a happy accident or a moment of fitting, even prophetic insight. What I've hoped to convey today, and really this is the point, okay? What I've hoped to convey today is a deeper appreciation for those words and for their scientific, theological, and ethical meaning and worth to us. Quote, "We affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part." Let's try to not let the recitation of these words lapse into thoughtlessness. Let's ponder them, savor them, for if we do, the gates of perception may swing wide open to us, through which we step into a landscape of wonder and gratitude for the bounty, both seen and unseen, of this one and precious world in which we move and live and have our being. And may it be so. Amen. So the choir sang "This We Know." It's one thing to know, it's another thing to feel it, to revel in it, and to live the truth of it. And may we go with that, not only the thought, but the feeling and the will to live the beauty of the interdependencies of all things. And what a blessing it is to be here today.